to talk about yourself, Haley, for a second?
I also worked in politics for about 8 years. Recently retired.
Yeah, we're both sort of did not have huge roles in this election, which I think gives us a good vantage point to talk about what's happening right now, which is not looking good. I don't think that anybody's really called one way or the other where the election's going, but at this point, Clinton has a very narrow path to victory. Do you agree?
Yes, and I can see the pundits sort of holding out hope in a way that they haven't. I don't know. I don't remember seeing in elections past where they keep sort of trying to hold the door open for her, even as the numbers are coming in looking the other way. Probably because they didn't prepare for this at all. No one knows what a Trump presidency is going to
look like. They didn't ever like prepare their surrogates with talking points for this eventuality, and they didn't like. There's no one in the like if you look at the watch party at Clinton HQ, there's no one on stage like keeping the crowd going. It's just like all the staff have left, and they're just left. There are all these supporters there, not with nobody there babysitting them.
You know what's going on? Which I was driving home. I live on the West Coast, and I was driving home, and I was stuck in traffic, and I heard on NPR that suddenly all of the Clinton campaign had gone dark. Yeah. I was like, oh, I know what that means, because I've had to do that. It's when you're not prepared and you hunker down and you don't have the talking points. Because when you go into an election that you know you're going to lose, you hang out, you say every vote counts or something stupid that's like that. But instead, it was lockdown mode. And I don't know, the only time I've gone in lockdown mode is when I was in northern Wisconsin and we lost by 8 in 2010.
Yeah, that's rough. I had a similar experience in 2010, I think, along with a lot of Democrats working on that election cycle. And I'll back you up on that. I mean, there's always a plan until something changes. And I'm feeling really dark about this. Even regardless of whether Hillary wins or loses, I feel for a lot of my friends who are really amazing people who worked on Hillary's campaign and other campaigns down ballot that where they worked really hard and may have come up short or may not have performed what they hoped to today. And it's just
and there's still some big bright spots. You have a couple. You've got Tammy Duckworth. That was a pickup in the Senate. You've got Roy Cooper in North Carolina, governor's race. Mm-hmm. I mean, if people are talking about what the bench looks like or what the field looks like going down, like those are two people that you could potentially look to since they won on a night like this.
And Cortez Masto, I think, won, and Joe Arpaio, I think, went down too, didn't he?
Lost, which doesn't make any sense. That you would think Trump is going to win Arizona, and Mini Trump, his like mentor, lost.
Right.
So is that a potentially good sign down the road? I don't know. It's like once you get the real flavor of what Trump in power looks like, people are going to turn on him, or what?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. For me, because he's defied expectations so many times that it's hard to know where his bottom is.
Well, and that was the whole question of this election is that no one figured out how to run effectively against him.
Nobody did. I mean, it seemed to me that the whole campaign became us using his statements in a way that would make the American people feel like he wasn't a decent human, which is, I mean, it definitely is appealing to me. I'm not sure if I'm a median voter, though. I know that I feel like when I've been communicated to in past elections, I know those aren't the messages. The messages that I found most effective were not the ones that actually won us the election. Like in 2012, we talked a lot about Republicans, how Mitt Romney wanted to restrict abortion, and he wanted to restrict voting rights and self-deportation and stuff like that. All these crazy things that he did that were really extreme to the right. And yet I know that the actual message that won us that election was Mitt Romney doesn't care about you. He's never been a working guy, and he's shipped jobs overseas. But
don't you think some of the problem was that Trump co-opted our typical messaging, at least in the Rust Belt? He took it, he delivered it better, and for some reason, even though he doesn't have any credibility on it, he makes his equipment or whatever in Mexico, in China. He has no credibility on it. but he took our messaging. He somehow did it better. And I sort of wonder, maybe what happens? Do we try to take it back for 2018, or do the Republicans see that he delivered them a landslide and they co-opt it?
Yeah.
And you see, we're actually, I don't know if this, I'm just listening to, everything coming in, but we're losing the union vote.
That's terrifying and awful.
And so, that was something we were talking about earlier, but that's what I don't understand. How, if we're losing the union vote, does that mean that our voters aren't voting for us this election? Or is there I don't understand where these voters are coming from, why we didn't anticipate it, and also whether our voters just stayed home the way they did in 10 and 14, or like, where is this rush? Where is this rush of white nationalism that nobody saw coming?
Yeah, I don't have all the answers. I feel like from what I've seen,
none of them. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, from what I've seen on television, it sounds like our field program performed as planned. It's just that there are a lot more white people out there in rural and exurbs who just came out, who had not come out in years. Since Reagan.
That's sort of, but they had wave elections. That's what I don't understand. They had 10. They had 14 where they did even better than 10. Saw, and even then, even within sort of the range of their turnout, it still looks relatively steady compared to sort of the peaks and valleys that you get for Democratic turnout. Is it like, has the party lost touch with like, sort of like the heartbeat of the Democratic Party? Did people just not show up? Or do we not have the crossover vote that they were trying to get? I still don't understand where we lost.
Yeah, so I think that it's sort of the two sides of the coin, right? Like, I feel like both Barack Obama elections, 2008 and 2016, we had both a very compelling negative against our opponent, and then also a coherent worldview of what we want to see. And this time around, I think the Clinton campaign did a good job of talking about what they wanted to see in components, but I'm not sure that there was as concerted an effort as I've seen in past elections to get that as large an attention as previous elections, right? Like, they didn't put a ton of time into nailing that home, right?
Well, that's a really good point. The thing is, Romney limped to election day. He barely had a pulse by the time, and even after that second debate, when there was sort of Democratic bedwetting, House candidates didn't necessarily recover. Senate candidates kind of did, because they're just a little bit bigger, so they can sort of take a little bit more water than House candidates can.
Yeah.
But even then, Romney barely, like, he just dragged himself over the finish line. He was a shell of a human being. Even if you saw that Netflix documentary that was like the best thing that came out of that campaign, where he's like super likable. Even that you saw how much he took on, he took a beat down. That's not what happened from the Clinton campaign. Or from the media, or whatever happened, Trump was like whack-a-mole, or he just bounced right back every time, or they didn't deliver enough. There wasn't enough of a compelling narrative to really cut him off the knee.
And that's sort of my point, is that in 2012, Romney's message against Obama was he screwed up the economy.
Right.
He didn't have like a compelling vision other than I'm a business guy, I'm going to fix America. Clinton's message this time was, I've been in Washington, I know how it works, I can get shit done. And Romney's message,
and honestly, the only person that's ever worked for is Rob Portman, who just won Ohio.
That's right.
Nobody ever.
I know where
the bodies are buried, so I got a shovel. Come with me. Like, that doesn't work for people.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So I'm going to make the case here that I think that even though that to us it seemed like a really negative message, to the people who are in his target audience, he gave this segment of people, for the first time in a really long time, a positive vision that they were identifying for what they wanted to see, in addition to what they've already been receiving from the Republican Party, which is they're corrupt, they're black, right? They're all this stuff that we like to say are dog whistles to the worst instincts that humans have, like racism and xenophobia. In addition to that, he also gave them a positive vision, which I don't think that Romney gave them.
I mean, a lot of people talk about how, President Obama's presidency exposed the racism in America. I mean, is Trump just that incarnate or on steroids? I mean, he won. I mean, and I think it is hard to run, especially as Democrats. We haven't run against. We're used to the dog whistles. We're not used to something so overt as the kind of, I would even say nihilism or fascism that he ran on. And I mean, that's what does tomorrow look like? I don't know.
Right now I'm just feeling extremely sad.
Yeah.
I'm just very sad for our country and for all my friends who worked on this campaign and did such a great job, because there are a lot of really smart people who did really amazing work on this election, and they're not going to get the credit they deserve because the result was a very difficult one.
Yeah. So when do you think they call it?
I don't know. I'm looking at the TV right now, and I don't see any indication that there's anything new happening. but before we wrap this up, I did want to talk a little bit about, obviously it's very early. It's still election night. Nominally, it's 1:40 a.m. Eastern time. What do you see as just the first things that are coming to mind for what our country needs and what the Democratic Party needs to do in the next year, 2 years, 4 years to address the weaknesses in our coalition and campaigns apparatus, which has been exposed by this election?
I don't know, Sam. Doesn't it feel a little soon? It's just, I mean, I feel heartened every time I see like the tweets that are talking about people. Instead of trying to break out to Canada, that people are talking about organizing or lending their development or their software engineering skills to resistance. I mean, that sort of feels like the time that we're in. I mean, we have someone who speaks in coded and not so coded fascist language, who is now going to be our president. So, I mean, it's just, how far is he going to go to unwind or just, completely whitewash the president's legacy? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic that we should go into. Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess let's wrap this up. Is there something else you wanted to talk about that you think is relevant?
No, I was about to speak, so you can pay attention to that.
All right. Well, thanks, Haley. This has been Sanders Mala. I worked on campaigns for about 10 years, and now I'm just commentating right now. But Haley has been my guest. She's a good friend of mine who also worked in politics. Haley, you want to say anything else before we get out of here?
No, let's talk again soon, because it's just really depressing.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody who watched this. Bye.